my name is Omal Joseph, and today my presentation will cover the children. In other words, our future. Simply put, this is just an image of school supplies. Now, when I was growing up, I never really had to worry about school supplies. They would just print us a list, and my parents would end up getting it for me, and I would go to school ready to learn with a backpack full of stuff. Or if I forgot a pencil, or a paper, or a tablet, my teachers would just supply me with one extra. But sometimes, we must think that kids nowadays don't always have the same opportunities that we did growing up. Our economy's changing, and there's a lot of other factors that go into play. Which brings me to the first part, which covers low-income housing. Now, just to give you an idea of what I experienced, last winter in 2017, I visited a local elementary school in the heart of Houston, Texas. It's called Bastion Elementary. Now, it is in a lower income neighborhood, just like I mentioned, and entering the campus really opened my eyes to a problem that's faced by many kids today, especially when it comes to appropriate funding for education. Now, there were signs that were listed all over the walls that said extra pencils costed 25 cents, an extra sheet of paper was 50 cents, and to enter the school fare, it was $10 per child. Now, let's really put that into perspective. For your own child to enter their own school fare, they have to pay $10. Now, I don't know if my parents had that covered via taxes or if there were other means of appropriating those costs, but I never had to pay a dime when it came to having a slice of pizza, let alone getting an extra piece of paper or a pencil. Now, there are many other challenges faced by children in low-income areas either, and people also have to take this into consideration when judging some of these kids, especially in their own learning environment. Now, there is a lack of exposure. In other words, many children are not exposed to books in low-income areas. Statistics actually show one book per 300 kids. That's a lot of kids compared to one book, as opposed to middle-class students who actually have 13 books per child. In other words, where I grew up, there were 13 books per kid as opposed to 300 students to one book. That's drastic. Now, there are also language barriers that take place too. 2 out of every 3 of English as second language students coming from low-income households with children ages from kindergarten to 5th grade rarely have parents that actually graduated high school. So, with lack of education from their own parents, what more do the kids look out for? There's also a lack of stability. Many children in low-income housing areas grow up in difficult situations, either in single-parent households or no guardians at all at the home, or with family members that may have detrimental health and disability issues. So there is nobody to take care of these kids. There's also a lack of role models. Due to the area, there's a lot of crime, and not a lot of people have high school diplomas or college degrees. Therefore, children really don't have anyone to look up to, and they get lost out in the streets. Now, this graph over here will actually show you how education really plays an important role in low-income houses and with poor families. As you can see, the more employed a person is, or the more education someone has, the less percentage someone will be when it comes to being not employed or not being educated and living in a low-income housing area, as opposed to someone who's not employed at all, depending on government income, or someone that has less than a high school degree. They won't really make it that far statistically. There's also really a lot of budget cuts going on in education that affects not only just Texas, but the nation overall. Now, some ideas to help bring funds for education and to stop cutting the funds for education would be to stop subsidizing corporations, ask companies to pay a fair share in taxes as they are rolling in a lot of money, and we could help some students out in low-income areas. They could also raise income taxes for top earners as well, and stop misappropriating toll road funds and put them to use for education. These tolls have already been paid off years ago. Now, Texas was affected by the budget cuts, and as a matter of fact, Texas is #2 in the nation for budget cuts in public school education since the Great Recession that took place in 2007 to 2008. After September 2017, about 135,000 public school teachers' jobs were cut. That's a lot of teachers. Now, education cuts were partly blamed to failing oil prices. Now, some solutions that could take place to help low-income areas would be donations. Now, let's put it into perspective as well. The budget could be just $500 a month just to have some activities for the kids or some hot meals ready for them as well. Now, imagine 500 people just donating $1. That's already $500 for the month's budget. Now, imagine if they had more in their heart to give. Fundraisers could also be held to accrue funds for activity purposes with the kids too. For example, maybe a bake-off or an art exhibit displaying all the children's work. It could bring some crowds in and help fund education and for supplies and other things that the school may need. Some takeaways from this would be to vote. Go out there and vote. Vote for those representatives that would actually help education and help bring more money rather than cut funds for it. In other words, every effort counts. Without the effort of everyone as a collective community, we're not going to get far. And to close it all, do it for the kids. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you have a great day.